Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ghost Biker Garage. I'm your host, the Ghost Biker, and we are excited to have tonight's guest. I know we're going to be talking about cool and exciting new things that I know a lot of you have seen and been commenting about. And I can't wait to get tonight's guest on and let him share what he's been working on because it's exciting stuff for all of us here in the paranormal community. But until then, we're going to take care of just a little bit of business here. Hope everyone's been having a great week. I know we're having kind of a stormy night down here in Cleveland, Tennessee. So hopefully, seems like every time we have the show on here. It seems like storms are rolling through, and hopefully it doesn't mess with my connectivity. So, anyways, hope everyone is having a great night. I know it's been very, very busy here. This past week, we were celebrating at the historic Scott County Jail the remembrance of National Law Enforcement Week, and we wrapped that up with a tribute to all of our fallen officers here or there at the historic Scott County Jail. So if you didn't catch last week's Jailhouse Informant podcast with all of the stories of those 14 fallen officers, you can do that on the historic Scott County Jail Facebook page as well as YouTube channel. So I hope you guys will go and check that out because there are some really interesting stories about those gentlemen that had an end of watch here at the jail. So also, flashlight tours and guided ghost hunts. We are wrapping those up for the month of May. We've got this weekend for Memorial Day weekend. We've got 2 hunts scheduled for tomorrow night, which is Friday, as well as Saturday night. And those will be at 7, and that's Eastern time, as well as 9 p.m. Eastern time. So if you haven't booked your ticket yet, I know that I don't think we have any for tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, but we do have some tickets available for the 9 p.m. flashlight tour, as well as we have a few tickets for the 9 p.m. on Saturday, and we still have quite a few for the 7 on this coming Saturday. So get on there under www.historicscottcojail.com, or you can follow the link on the Facebook page. So this past weekend with Ghost Biker Explorations, Historic Scott County Jail, and the Widow's Sons Masonic Riders Association, we had the 2nd annual Harold Young Memorial Dart Run. And quite a few folks attended. We didn't have as good of attendance as we did the year before. The year before, we had a whole lot of folks for the actual day of the event. We raised about $1,200. This year, attendance was a little bit down. We ended up raising $560 the day of the event, and the money goes to create a scholarship. Actually, now it goes to fund a scholarship for a Scott High School student who's majoring in the field of science. The scholarship is named in honor of my dad, who was a 39-year educator in the field of science. He taught all things science, biology, chemistry, physics, geology, general science there at Scott High School. And so this year, as I've been saying for the last 6 weeks, we had 15 applicants apply. And so it was a very, very tough choice, but we did end up giving a $1,000 scholarship to Miss Gracie King, who is going to the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, and she's going to be majoring in the field of nursing. So which is a branch of science. So so I wanted to take a few minutes and show a video just kind of highlighting this weekend's events. Gracie did show up and she did accept the scholarship. Nancy Burke, she was the one who won the dart run. And so she actually won a very, very cool trophy that was fabricated by Mashed Thumb Welding and Fabrications. And so, if you're a biker, you'll recognize what this trophy is. But it was just a fun day, had by all. And we're going to be doing some more events throughout the remainder of the year to really try to build that scholarship fund up so that next year we can also give away a $1,000 scholarship. So be on the lookout for some of those different events that's coming up. But in the meantime, I just want to take a few minutes and show the video that highlights what was going on this weekend. So here we go.
Nancy Burke won it.
Because this year we are able to give $1,000 scholarship to a student who is going to go to science. All right. So again, thank you everyone that contributed. You can still mail in checks. We have that on the page, and we'll be posting the video after we come back after the show is over with. But you can mail those checks to 214 Lytton Covered Bridge Road, Huntsville, Tennessee 37756 if you are interested in donating. And also a quick thank you to the sponsors. This was a partnership between myself, my family, Ghost Biker Explorations, the Widow's Sons Masonic Riders Association Hillbilly Chapter, Fat Baby Meats, Dilligaff Cycle Shop, as well as the historic Scott County Jail, and the Mashed Thumb Welding and Fabrication. So again, thank you all so much for your support and for your contributions to the fund. Another quick thing that is coming up this week, and I want to make sure that I get this shared here. Got a lot going on, back-to-back events, kind of a lot to manage with the back-to-back events. However, this coming weekend, we are going to be having the Haunted Ride with Ghost Biker, which we do every year. This will be actually the 4th annual Haunted Ride with Ghost Biker. And we're doing something a little different with this. It's going to be taking place on Saturday, May 28th. Kickstands Up is at 11 a.m. and the starting location is going to be in Harriman, Tennessee. And so my guest tonight, we're going to be talking a little bit about Harriman. But if you are familiar with that area, it's beautiful, it's historic, and that's where the ride is going to start. The ride is a 98-mile motorcycle ride that goes up the Cumberland Plateau, and it's going to stop at it's going to stop at the R.M. Brooks General Store, which is in Rugby, Tennessee. And we'll be there for about an hour. They're having their Biker Appreciation Day, and there's going to be music. They've got some giveaways that they're going to be given to folks, as well as they've got the best bologna sandwiches in East Tennessee. So we'll be spending an hour there. And then after that hour's up, we're going to head on northwest, and we're going to go through the scenic and beautiful Big South Fork National River and Recreation Area. And through that, we're going to and that's probably another hour ride, and that's going to end over at the historic Scott County Jail. And so your admission, which is $20, that's going to include it's going to include the ride. It is going to include the admission into the jail. And then if I can get this other stuff here pulled up, let me pull it up here. Let's see if that changed the screen there. Yeah. So you're going to be getting a commemorative motorcycle sticker from R.M. Brooks General Store. That's actually one of my drawings that I did of the store. And then, and also one of the motorcycles. And then you're also going to get a commemorative poker chip from the historic Scott County Jail in the black and white inmate colors, and it's also got the jail on it as well as the logo. So, so you're getting a lot of really cool stuff with that, and then the tour is going to be an hour to an hour and a half guided tour, where we'll be talking about all the history as well as some of the haunts and stuff that happens there at the historic Scott County Jail. So a lot of cool things included in this $20 admission. We needed 8 bikes for the ride to make, and thankfully we've got those bikes, and so Again, get your tickets. You can get them through 8 o'clock tomorrow night, and you can do that by going to the Historic Scott County Jail Facebook, Facebook page under the event section, or you can also do that by going to www.historicscottcojail.com, and we'll get that link put into the comments there so you can easily get to it. You purchase your tickets, you sign your waiver, and then you just meet me there on Saturday. You'll also get a copy of the map so you'll know where all we're going. So anyways, more coming on that as the show goes on, but I want to go ahead and get to tonight's guest because I know we have a whole lot to talk about. If any of you guys over in the comments have any questions, please feel free to put those in, and put those in all caps if you don't mind, just so we can make sure that I don't miss your questions while we're talking here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring on the president of Old South Pitt Paranormal Research Center, Old South Pitt Hospital Paranormal Research Center, and the Old Historic Haunted Harriman Hospital. That's a mouthful, Ronnie Dee.
That's a mouthful.
How are you doing?
I am doing well, but after that introduction, I don't know if I could put up with how great you're doing over at the jail over there. My Lord. A lot of stuff going on.
A lot of stuff going on. We're trying to get a lot of events, and then with summer coming up and everything, a lot of people are out. So normally it's kind of hard to have back-to-back events, especially back-to-back motorcycle events. But when you got this great weather and everything, it's hard to pass that up.
Isn't that true? You make me want to go out and buy a motorcycle again, I'm telling you.
Come on and join us.
You never know, I might.
Well, you've always got a spot there at the jail, and since I'm excited about the fact that we're neighbors pretty much now.
Well, you're right down the road, and I know you and I talked about this, prior to us obtaining the hospital, that it is definitely something that we want to sit down with you and Chris and talk about, doing some crossover promotions and doing some events together. I think I didn't know you were starting in Harriman on that bike ride. Otherwise, we would have prepared for that and planned for that as well too, but next time for sure.
Yeah, we it was kind of one of those things in the area that we're at. The jail is located right there in the middle of the scenic byway, and so right there, of course, the hospital's right there at the base of the Cumberland Plateau, and so I've tried to start the ride at different spots every year, and so this year I was like, where's somewhere different that I can hit several places, and Harriman was a no-brainer. I mean, they have done so much to really do a lot of really nice things there in that town.
Yeah, that's really come along quite a bit. Talking about this is that my first trip to Harriman actually was about 15 years ago, doing an investigation over at the Temperance building, which is directly across the street from us. And it's kind of funny how it all comes full circle, that now we're an owner of the hospital in the same city that I did an investigation in 15 years ago. But as you said, knowing what the town looked like 15 years ago to what it looks like today, the city council and the industrial board is really working hard to make Harriman a really nice area, and really bring it up and get rid of a lot of the, I don't know what you would say, but kind of the old looking. They're trying to restore downtown. Downtown is just absolutely gorgeous, and we're part of that. Owning the hospital here, that was one of our pledges to the city, was upkeeping our end of the deal, and they're real happy with us. We're trying to do that and accomplish that. And one of the things that we talked about before we got on the air is, you're absolutely right. The paranormal, I love it, but they're really the ones who pay the bills to keep our old historic locations going. And everybody out there in the paranormal, I want to say thank you. Thank you for the support with Old South Pittsburg, with Harriman, with the Scouts County Jail, and so many other locations. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be able to save these diamonds in the rough.
Absolutely. And people don't realize that. I mean, because most of the people I know in the paranormal are history buffs, but I mean, that's what keeps the lights on in these old buildings. And you're constantly doing something. I know, I investigated Old South Pitt a long time ago, and just the work that you did when you came into Old South Pitt, It's amazing. I mean, and you can tell too that the spirits absolutely love that as well. I mean, you've done an amazing job with just Old South Pitt.
Yeah, and it's a team effort. As you and Chris know, I mean, it takes a whole family to keep this going and to keep this running smoothly. And I've really been blessed with some of the best in the paranormal to help us fix these locations, help them keep them alive and active. And like you said, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I used to investigate Old South Pittsburgh prior to owning it, and just the whole atmosphere and kind of the vibe of the building has done a 180. I mean, it's just an amazing location. And I will tell you that Harriman here now, oh my God, it's kind of the same thing. I think when somebody, Miranda, like yourself and Chris and I, and with the people that we get involved in, I think when the spirits see what we have in store for them, they want to come out. They want to tell their stories. And Harriman's no different than Old South Pittsburgh. It's really an amazing location, and it is so big. I mean, it is 168,000 square feet. I've owned the building now for a couple of months, but I've been here fixing it for the last year, and I still get turned around. I look at, like, how am I? And they're like, oh, you're here. And I'm like, I am. So we have a hallway that literally is a block long. I mean, and you look at it, it goes on forever. And it's just a really neat building. It's been a pleasure to work with the Harriman and everybody in it to keep this building alive and healthy.
Yeah, I remember when it shut down, and I knew a lot of folks too, 'cause, again, I pass through there when I come down to Chattanooga every week, and, I know people who have been in the hospital there. I know people who were born there as well as people who passed away there, and, it was really sad when it did close down and that it just, kind of like the jail and some of the other places, it just sits there. And if you don't have people that come in like what you've done, the history ends up dying along with the building. And so let's kind of talk a little bit about Harriman and the history and what you've done there at the hospital.
Well, we're still working on that. One of the things is it is like we talked about, like you just said a little while ago, is that it's a hospital that still has active employees who just went from one location to the other. So it is kind of a touch kind of situation because a lot of people have still had their heart in this building. Moved. So getting people to really support what we're doing sometimes can be a challenge. But the people who have reached out have told us some really great stories about what's going on here and everything like that. We've got a couple of the old nurses that work here who are on our staff now. So that's really neat to be able to walk around and they say, "Oh, this used to be you, then it moved over here," and so we're getting a lot of the history. But it's hard to put a lot of the pieces together. This building was born in 1930, and it's been addition after addition after addition after addition. And getting back to the 30s, a lot of those people have long, since deceased. So it's hard to try and find a lot of that information from, when the building actually started. There's a lot of information from like the 60s and on, but really,
Mhm.
when it was founded or when it started, we're being puzzled because we're trying to tell the history and truth of it, and it's hard to figure out what's where and what was here and there because, well, number one, it was a long time ago and people forget, but number two, like I said, a lot of those people are no longer with us. So it's a challenge, but I can tell you for a fact that the building was born in 1938. Its grand opening had 1,000 people who came to it. When you go onto the back side of the building, which is called Livonia Street, there's 14 windows that go across the building, and that's the original hospital. It was
Okay.
buildings. It had a state-of-the-art elevator system in it. Had a couple of operating rooms. What's really, really unique about the city of Harriman is that it actually had what they called a colored wing, which was actually in the back of the building, and it was a one-story. And that colored ring actually shared the same as the cafeteria. So it was a hospital that was segregated way back then. Obviously since then we don't no longer do that, but that goes to how old the hospital is, kind of the characteristics that it had. But then as it grew, they put additions on, they put a maternity ward in, they put an ICU in, and it just kept growing and growing and growing, into 168,000 square feet. And they've done everything from births here to cancer treatment to MRIs to, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And, talking to a lot of the nurses and doctors who work here and have transferred, their heart and soul was here. And I think that's one of the things I think that I really like about the hospitals is that place that, it's like no other. These are the
Mhm.
people who keep us healthy. These are the people who, when you have a bruise, a broken bone, or on your deathbed, they're the ones who are by your side, until you either pass or kill you. And, they deserve that respect and they deserve that kind of memorabilia of the area. And that's really what we try to do here at OSPH, or OHH and OSPH is that alive. Yeah, and I'm mixing up my locations. So, but that's what I think is really kind of unique about my staff and I is that we want to make sure that the doctors and the nurses that have called this their home for so many years are not forgotten, and that their legacy continues to go on.
Absolutely, and that's what I really like about what you do because you really take a lot of care into making sure that the appropriate and correct story and history is told about these places, and I really commend you for that because there's a lot of sensationalism about a lot of these different locations, and I know just from investigating Old South Pitt during, a prior life of that hospital, I know that there were some pretty dark and inaccuracies. And so, I really commend you, and we deal with that as well at the jail. A lot of people, a lot of locations, people can say, "Hey, come in here. There's these demons. There's these dark entities in here," and sure, that gets some people through the door. But I know from our perspective, we're really protective because we're in there investigating it all the time, and because you do have families and stuff that are still around and people connected to the jail, it's something that's important to us. So, as an investigator and a location owner myself, I really appreciate the time and care you take into doing that.
Well, and it gets frustrating too because I think in the old days of paranormal investigating, I think people wanted to be oohed and awed and shocked and come face to face with things that necessarily weren't in our field. And so, like you said, there's a lot of sensationalism, there's a lot of storytelling. And now, as we're developing and as our research is getting better and better, we're realizing that it's not the case. The truth is really what you seek. And people who are chasing demons and doing that kind of thing aren't the people we really want in the paranormal.
Exactly.
Here we want to communicate with past patients and past doctors and past nurses and find out why they're still in the hallways and why they're still doing their job here and get with that residual, energy that's still in the building. And like I said, with OSPH, it's very frustrating because people just, that old expression, if it's on the internet, it's got to be true. And there's so much on the internet from a past life of OSPH. And we get people who come in and then they do a YouTube video or a podcast and they're spewing that information that was never true to begin with. And then so we try and police it the best we can to make sure that those YouTube videos are accurate. And sometimes we make people very angry because we're like, we want to see your podcast or we want to
Mhm.
see you prior to going on Facebook or on social media. And it's not that we're being, unrealistic. It's just that we're wanting to protect the history, and the truth of the building and the people who are in it. And it's no
Mhm.
offense to anybody, but like I said, what's really neat about OHH is we're starting brand new. There's no rumors out there. There's nobody running around going, "Oh, there's a demon on the second floor." Everything that we're discovering now is brand new, it's fresh, and it's exciting because we've had some teams in here over the last couple of weeks that got some information that we were just in awe with because my team and I are going in here blind too. There's not a lot of information that's out there. And so when these teams start getting information and names and this happened and that happened, we do have historians that we can go to and
Mhm.
they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a doctor that worked there," and we're like, "Whoa." So it's really kind of neat, and it's neat because it's a discovery point of time for OHH. And the groups coming in, we had the bench breaking broads up here that gave me like 15,000 pages of like, evidence that I came up with. And to go through it and decipher it, and then to go, to the local historians and go, okay, so we came up with this name. It's Dr. So-and-so. Who is this? And then they open up their book and they're like, oh yeah, Dr. So-and-so, he was at the hospital from this time to that time and died over here. And you're like, Well, there's no possible way that these groups are getting that information because it's not out there. So
Right.
this is one of those things that people are like, oh, the paranormal isn't real. I'm here to tell you some of the information that we're getting from this hospital is just amazing. And it really goes to show that there is something going on in the afterlife, or it's just, like I said, it's just a really unique situation. And like same with the Scotts County Jail, there's probably not a lot of investigation going on. The information that you're getting is just like, you're like, whoa. And then to have,
Hmm.
still alive and be able to verify some of that evidence, it just really, really, it makes me happy. It's just really cool.
Absolutely. We're experiencing the exact same thing there because at this point, there's only been about 25 teams that have investigated there, at least since we've been open. I know I investigated it back in 2014 before it opened, and there was a few other people before that that came in. And to be able to, it's like the spirits in there, they absolutely want to share their story, and it's like they're appreciative of the fact that people are coming in listening because we've been able to talk to victims, we've been able to talk to former sheriffs, we've been able to talk to jailers, we've been able to talk to former inmates. And so to be able to validate this information that we're getting from beyond with history, it's amazing. And I think you get good results when you go in with that type of investigating versus going in with, demon hunting and that sort of thing.
Right. Well, and I think, like I said, if I pass away, I want my legacy to live on too. And if I get the chance to walk these walls after I'm dead, I want to tell people how excited I am and how proud I am of my volunteers and the work that was done here. And imagine being a doctor or a nurse who spent 20 hours a day here, treating sick people, and they pass away, and they want their stories to be told. They want to stick around and be like, yeah, and I think that's what's really unique about the whole hospital, the whole medical field is such an abused field. I mean, these
Mhm.
people work tirelessly. I mean, we all just went through a pandemic, and we've got nurses on our staff at OSPH, that we're talking about working 20 hours a day,
Yeah.
being exhausted. And these are frontline workers. These are people who put their health, up before our health. And like I said, I think it's really unique that I get the chance to keep that kind of history alive. And like I said, and then when we're here and we get an EVP from a doctor who's been dead for 15 years or 20 years, and you're like, whoa, he is still here. He is still telling his story. I think that's just amazing. And I think that's one of the things that intrigues a lot of us in the paranormal. And that's why we keep doing what we're doing, is to try and get those answers and find out, why are you sticking around? What's going on? Why are you still doing your rounds? And I think, like I said, a lot of people's heart and souls are in these buildings and they don't want to give it up.
Absolutely. I mean, it takes a special person to be a doctor and a nurse and to put all that time in and to do all that, so I could really imagine that they would have a very strong connection to the location.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So are hospitals your favorite type of location to investigate? Why invest in hospitals?
I think hospitals are, in my opinion, probably one of the best places to investigate, just because it's the whole realm of life. It's from birth to death and everything in between. And I
Mhm.
think, like I said, I think there's so much residual energy in a hospital. You've got energy of trauma. You got energy of the what do you call it? The joy of being born. You've got and everything. You know what I mean? You've got people who come in for hockey injuries, motorcycle injuries. I mean, you've got so much different energy under one roof, and I think that really is ingrained into the bricks and into everything in here. And hospitals aren't always sad places. Like you said, a lot of times they're places where where people are birthed. They're places
Mhm.
where people come and they get in a motorcycle accident, and the doctor
Mhm.
stitches them up, and they walk out of the hospital a couple of days later, and that's a happy place. I mean, that's a place
Mhm.
where people come and they get fixed. On the other hand, there's a lot of tragedy and trauma and death too. And I think that transpires into a lot of just energy all around. So yeah, but my biggest thing is, like I said, the healthcare workers, the doctors, the nurses. When we purchased Harriman Hospital, one of the things that we said is we wanted to keep, all of those healthcare workers' legacy alive. It's kind of a tribute to everybody in the healthcare situation or in the healthcare occupation, to keep their legacy alive and to be like, yeah, this was a place where people were healed. This was a place where people were born. Unfortunately, it's a place where people die too. But like I said, everything in between happens here, and I think that's what's really what intrigues me the most about hospitals.
I love it. So, did you get a lot of, I mean, because Harriman is not very different from Huntsville. Did you get a lot of pushback whenever you came in to do this, or were people pretty
It was kind of, I would, um, one of the things that our kind of goal or what our kind of our sell was is that the hospital, just like OSPH, was, weeks away from football. I had somebody reach out on my team. Her name is Leanne Rogers, and she says, "Hey, I heard that they're knocking down the Harriman Hospital." And the first thing I thought was, well, let's give them a call. Let's see what we can do. Basically, it was going to cost the town about $14.1 million to knock it down. And that's on the taxpayer dime. That's, people like me and you who work hard for our money, that was going to come out of things that could go for a park or could go for streets or whatever. So I was like, hey, well, let's talk to City Hall, let's talk to the industrial board, and let's see what we can do. And so we made the phone call. They were apprehensive about the ideal, primarily because somebody had approached them, a few years back and a deal on a napkin. And yeah, we'll do this, and and they weren't very professional about it. So I think they were a little apprehensive. I know for a fact that it was kind of a unique story, but I was actually at OSPH one day, and I got a phone call from the chief of police in South Pittsburg, and he says, "Hey, Ronnie." I said, "Hey." He says, "Are you buying another hospital?" At this point in time, it was secret. The only person I talked to was Leanne, a couple of members of my team, and then City Hall here over at Harriman. And so he calls and says, "I heard you're buying a new hospital." And I said, "You?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "The one over in Harriman, huh?" I said, "You do?" And he said, "So how'd you know that?" He looks and goes, "Roy," he's on the phone. He says, "Well, I'm the police chief. I know everything." I was like, "Oh." So he said, "Yeah." He said, "I was vetted pretty hardly. The city council called over at OSPH in the city of South Pittsburgh and asked if I was a real person, if we were a legitimate business, how South Pittsburgh Hospital looked. And, they were honest. They told them that, we're doing a great job. We bring a lot of revenue in the South Pittsburgh area, with people who come out of town and that at Scotts County Jail. There's a lot of people who travel miles and miles to come do what we do. And so Harriman then called me and said, let's sit down and talk. So myself and a couple of my members of my team got together. We drove over to Harriman. We had to do a business plan. We had to sit up before city council. We probably had a couple hundred hours into, the city, talking to them and what we could do, what we couldn't do. And then we started moving forward. It was a very slow process, primarily because, being in the South, we're in the Bible Belt. There's a lot of people who do have an issue with what we do. Unfortunately, because they don't understand what we do and they think that we're sitting. And I got a quote from one of them: "We sit in rooms and do seances and conjure up the demons." And I said, "No, that is really far from the truth." And like what you said earlier, I said, "You know what? My family comes here. My paranormal family comes here. We have children, we have adults, we have everybody. We're not going to sit in a room and conjure up something that's going to hurt somebody." I said, "We're far from that." So we had some city hall members and some of the industrial board from Harriman come and do an investigation, one of our publics at South Pittsburgh Hospital. And I think after they actually did an investigation with us, the public, they sat down and like, "We're ready. Let's do this." I think they found out how professional we can be in the paranormal field. I think they found out that we're not running down the halls, screaming demons. We're not a bunch of Zach Bagans. We're actually doing what we want to do, and we're doing it professionally, and we're doing it very well. Once they got a hint of that, we moved forward, and then things really started speeding up, and it got to the point where they were like, "When are you turning the water over? When are you?" I mean, they were really hip on it, and I think the city realizes that us paranormal investigators, our field, we really do have a lot to offer these little small towns with bringing in revenue. Doing all the things that we do prior to an investigation. And, like Scotts County Jail, like Harriman, like OSPH, we're putting little cities on the map. We just filmed by a major corporation a couple weeks ago. That'll air in September. We did a PBS show. We're working with a couple of major movie studios to rent out the building. These are all things that wouldn't be done in this little town if we didn't save this building. And that's all people who never even knew what Harriman was until, we introduce it to them. And so I think
Mhm.
and the industrial board realized that, hey, we've got something here. Let's go with it. So we're trying our best to, get Harriman out there, get it in the population and the paranormal population so that people can come out and enjoy it. And I will tell you, like I said, I've been doing this for 18 years. It feels like I'm going on 38 years. But it is one of the biggest, cleanest locations I've ever investigated. I mean, it is just, we've got a couple of girls on the team that they're here constantly scrubbing stuff down. And every time I come back, I walk through the halls going, whoa, because it's almost movie ready. One of the girls kind of laughed.
Nice.
She goes, "Oh, this looks like Grey's Anatomy staircase." You walk through it, you walk through the stairs, going, "Yeah, it kind of does." But the building is so intact that if you're looking behind me,
Mhm.
I'm actually in one of the ER rooms right now on a gurney, like here. Um, but we actually have a lot of the emergency room lights still up. There's still a lot of paraphernalia in the building that was left behind when the building closed. So it's like I said, it's a really unique building. It's really cool.
Nice. So, so if an investigator comes to investigate, do they have power throughout, or is it kind of like Old South Pitt?
It's very similar to Old South Pittsburg, where we've got power on the first floor. We do have running water and bathrooms, which is really nice. So if you're charging your equipment, we have power on the first floor throughout most of the first floor, so you can utilize your equipment, charge your stuff like that. And anything above the first floor is really kind of lights out, so to speak. I do like it that way because one of the things that's really nice about that is not having power throughout the rest of the building. When you get an EM hit or when you get a REM pod hit, as long as your phone is on airplane mode, it's not anything coming from the building. So one of the things I don't like about doing an investigation of a building that's fully powered is a lot of times you can get, some real false readings.
Mhm.
So this way, we have security cameras throughout the building that run on 12 volts, but those generally will not interfere with EMF. It's generally like 120 volts that does. So it's actually pretty nice that you can, like I said, you can get some pretty good results on the building.
Yeah, and, it's kind of funny because you had, I saw a post where you guys had somebody kinda try to come in on you guys this past weekend. It must be the moon or something because we had the exact same thing happen when I had a paranormal team on Saturday night. We had somebody come in and, of course, they said, "Oh, we're looking for the, current jail." Now, we have the lights out. You come in, you see that it is a historic building. We have the historic Scott County Jail on the door. We had a team sitting there. And so, of course, we always have somebody on site when they're doing their private investigations. And so, personally, he seemed very local. So, I was able to run him out. But it must be something in the air because,
Well, and I will tell you that we had OSPH that same identical night. It was a trifecta. I mean, if you had it too, we got all three. Because OSPH, somebody tried getting in the back door of OSPH Saturday night too. And one of the things that people don't understand is that we have become very smart as property owners, and we use some really cool
Mhm.
devices that pretty much notify us immediately. When somebody's on the grounds, and you kind of keep an eye on them from a distance, and then you realize
Yes.
building, you call 911 and the police. I mean, we're talking small towns here. We're not a metropolitan area like Chicago or New York. When we call the police department, they're here in about 13 seconds.
Yeah.
And we saw these perps come up to the door, and we called the police, and they were in the back of the paddy wagon probably before I even got the chance to sneeze. And I think
Nice.
one of the things that's really unique about these little towns is that they protect their own, and they protect them really well. And
Mhm.
like I said, so they tried getting in, and they weren't very successful. It was a long, stressful night because this as well as I do. We put our heart and souls into these buildings, and $35. That's all it takes to
Yeah.
come do a tour. $35. Now you're talking about jail time. You're talking about all of the stuff that they're doing with the public trespassing. It's going to cost them thousands of dollars in legal fees by the time it's done. All they had to
Mhm.
do was make one phone call, and $35 would have got them around the building. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the thrill of trying to come in or people who just don't care, but I know we're directly across from the 911 center, and I think you guys are pretty close to the police station too, right?
Our police department is directly across the street. If I sneeze out enough, I can shatter their windows. It is
Nice.
literally directly across the street. So that's why I said, I mean, you try to break in and they could literally walk here across the street by the time that somebody has the chance to go anywhere. So it was kind of an eventful evening. And then the one kid was like, oh, well, we weren't trying to get in. As he's got a crowbar and a flashlight in his backpack. Yeah, okay. I always, go out to Dunkin' Donuts with a crowbar and a flashlight.
Right? Yeah, no, so I just thought that was really interesting when I saw that because, we had a very small team here that night, and, there was 2 of them, there was myself, and then, of course, that guy that walked in, and so then, of course, he came back a little bit later, but, he didn't try to come in again, so and I think, because 'cause we've got cameras up as well, we've got cameras up there, we've got, a locking system, and so, like you, we know when someone's trying to come in.
Right. Well, what's really, really scary, I mean, if there's not an investigation going on, we're in Tennessee. There's a lot
Mhm,
of people who carry guns around here. And that's the part that really frightens me is that there could be a time where somebody walks in and one of my gun carrying people could be here and we would really hate to like have something really, really bad happen. But you know what, when you're breaking in or trying to break and enter a building and you get in, you know if somebody's in that situation and they're that afraid, you know
mhm.
I mean, there's the possibility that somebody could get really hurt, and I don't think people understand that, and that's the scary part of the whole situation. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, when I was a kid, we did this and we did that," and times have really changed. It's
Yeah.
not the world that we live in now, and unfortunately, people do a lot of really bad things. Not that they didn't back then, but people do
Mhm.
do a lot of bad things, and there just could be something that unfortunately happens, and they've got to have more respect for our buildings like this. And the thing that's
Mhm.
really sad too is that you and I and other building owners, we're putting so much money back into the buildings, and and our buildings are locked up tight. So really, the only way in is through force or through breakage, and
Mhm.
that costs us money to rebuild that stuff. And unfortunately, they don't have respect for our properties, and that's the really sad situation about it all.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a couple questions here in the comments. We've got 2 people who have actually asked, "What are some of the, different incidents, or activity that you've captured specifically at your locations that you can speak about?"
Well, we can tell this one, which is really cool because this kind of goes with the whole gun thing that we were just talking about. Prior to owning the building, and I know you probably did this as well. My group, we assembled the team. Some of the members from OSPH, we all got together, did an investigation in the building because you obviously want to make sure it's active. You don't want to spend
Mhm.
all the money on it not active.
Mhm.
So we had come in and we're in the group, and we were up on the second floor, which is known surgical center. It's where our operating rooms are, recovery rooms. It's where the doctors and nurses have their lockers. It's a very, very dark area of the hospital. And we had walked up the stairs, and as we walk up the stairs, we see a man walk by. And I mean, all 8 of us, as plain as day. I mean, it was like looking at you. And we saw him walk by, and before I even knew it, I turned around, and half of my team's got their guns drawn. Good old Tennessee, and I'm a Chicago boy hiding behind, these big guns. So we actually locked all the girls in one of the rooms because we weren't sure, to be really honest with you, if we were dealing with a spirit, or a human. So we locked all the girls in one of the rooms together that we knew was secure, and the guys kind of walked around a little more, and we saw them again. Well, if when you guys all come to investigate OHH, it's kind of a big loop upstairs. Like you go through the hallway and then you go through the locker room area, and it's a big circle. Well, we kept chasing them in a circle. I mean, it was so funny because it kind of looked like a Warner Brothers cartoon. We're chasing Froghorn Leghorn around in a circle, and just when we have him, he disappears, and we're like, well, this guy really knows this building because we kept, you know. Well, finally, he had disappeared for a little while, so we got the girls out of the room. We're like, Can't figure out where he went. He just disappeared. Well, then all of a sudden, all 8 of us saw him again. And all of a sudden, we saw a door open and he walks through a door. So we're like, all right, we know it's a human now because, the door opened. We saw him walk into this room. So we all walk into the room, and the only way in and out was through that door. And there's absolutely nobody in that room. And we all
Wow.
each other, high-fived each other. We're like, oh, yeah, this place is haunted. I mean, because it went on for, I'm not kidding you, you can ask any of the team members, probably 15 or 20 minutes, where we were chasing him around and seeing him that frequently. So then we're like, we're doing some more investigating and all that other stuff, and had some really cool stuff happen. Well, now in the process of cleaning up the building and get it ready for investigators, we'll come walking up the stairs, and that same gentleman will be standing in the doorway, just standing there staring at you like, what are you guys doing? And then he'll kind of give you a smirk and then just disappear. And he's like here all the time. Like, I have a staff of like 35 people here, and I think everybody has seen him at least once. But it's really unique. I mean, the full body apparition is so detailed. You can see his clothing. I mean, but he'll walk upstairs, and like I said, he'll be standing in the doorway as if to say, "Hey, you're here," and then kind of give you a smirk and just disappear. And one of the rumors, or one of the stories that was being told while the building was open, was a lot of nurses saw this same gentleman, that he was kind of walking around the building and just kind of disappear. And so whoever he is, hopefully one of our investigators will find out who he is. But he's the building that I think possibly could be a janitor from the old times or something like that. That's really got a lot invested in the building. But frequently. One of the really famous stories that's really kind of cool that happened even prior to the building closing is there was a nurse. Her name is Joanna. She worked down in A3, which was the cardiac ICU area. She was one of the ICU nurses. She died at a very young age. She actually died here in the hospital of a heart attack. Go figure, right? But away here in the hospital, one of the things she said to the other nurses is that even past my life, she says, I'm going to continue to work here. She says, I'm going to come back and visit all you girls, even after my death. So she had passed away here. And there's a lot of nurses that we come in contact with who are in that A3 area that say that a lot of times they'll sit down and they'll be looking up at the monitors, and they'll look over, and there's Joanna sitting there looking up at the monitors. One of the nurses we talked to actually said that she kind of looked over at her, gave her a smile, and then just disappeared into thin air. Joanna was known for kind of having a little bit of a temper when things didn't go right, and she would kind of throw what were those called, the charts on the floor. Kind of was a very, very hard on her sleeve kind of woman, and a lot of people said that in the location that she'd throw those charts, even after her death, they would still go flying without anybody being there. I know that we had that TV show that was out here that did some filming that had some interaction with her. But she's a very, very, another one of those spirits that's very, very active here. So that's really neat that we have some spirits in the building that are here, that we can actually have people who can back up the story as they worked here. And she still continues to come back and do her job here. So it's kind of neat. Her name is Joanna, and she's over there at A3.
Very nice. So a lot of residual, but sounds like also some intelligent.
Yeah, Joanna was definitely intelligent. To look over at the other nurse and kind of smile and give her that smirk, shows that she definitely identified that there was another person next to her. And then the gentleman that we're seeing throughout the building, like I said, in my opinion, I think he's kind of watching us to see that we're taking care of his location, and he's kind of off to a distance, but there'll be a lot of times where we're in that block-long hallway and we'll kind of see him dart in and out of rooms. But I think he's still residual and intelligent. I think a lot of his residual activity is him doing the maintenance that he usually does. But like I said, we've definitely chased him around, and I know that he was playing a game with us, because every time we were just about ready to get him, he'd kind of disappear and show up. So it was really kind of neat.
That's really cool, especially for a first time experience.
Yes, and that was that was one of the things that, the team and I, when we got here, we were kind of like, oh, well, let's see. I always kind of come in pessimistically, kind of like, oh, nothing's going to happen. And I mean, we walked in and I would say it happened within probably 20 or 25 minutes of our investigation that night. And then we decided to kind of camp out in that area, and we did a bunch of investigating. And I think we were there for a good 6 hours, and it was active. Like from the time we all got tired, and it was still going on, and we're finally like, oh, we just got to go back to the sleep. But it was like they were reaching out. We were like, no, don't go, don't go. But like I said, it got to the point where we were also beat that everybody's like, yeah, we'll pick this up another day. But I think, like I said, I think when you have a location that's got the history of some of these locations have, and they've been shut down for as long as they have, I think once they see us back here, it picks up, and it picks up because they want people to realize they're still here, and they kind of like, hey, we're kind of showing themselves off. And that's what I think is really unique about Harriman is that this building hasn't. So this is really new. This is a new location. I think it's probably had about maybe a half investigations in it since it's so everybody who comes in here now, it's virgin territory. It's got a lot of areas that really need some of that investigating to find out what's still going on in here.
Absolutely. And I think they know. I think they know whenever somebody comes in did you just hear something?
Yeah, I just heard a voice in the hallway.
I was going to say, I heard something talk just then. I could hear it on your phone. I think these spirits know not just that you're coming in to talk to them, but that, you're coming in to share their story. And I think that's why that there's just kind of that push, because we get the same thing. It's like when you're in there, we're a small location, but we always say it packs a big paranormal punch and has a big history. And I think it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you'll listen, we'll talk. And so people are just getting things like crazy. And I know Christy and I had this same conversation because I could tell her what I experienced when I was there in 2014. And there was a lot of activity then. It had been closed up because it closed in 2008. And so I was in there in 2014. And then, like I said, only a handful of people had investigated since. But whenever we went in to see about opening it, it was kind of like, I can tell you what I experienced, but, is it consistent paranormal activity? It's kind of hard to say. But once we got in there and sat down, started, having conversations with the spirits and letting them know what we were doing and started fixing it up, I mean, it's like it just came alive. And so then we're just like, yes, thank you.
Well, it's a big risk. Gamble. A lot of people don't know that is that, these old buildings in Scotts County Jail, all of our locations, it takes a lot of love, it takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of care. And we're really taking a big risk because, like you said, what happens if you walk in and the activity is really good for the first couple of months, it goes away? It's a lot of time, a lot of money invested, and all that kind of thing. And I think if the spirits aren't treated right, doing for there's a possibility that they could move on, and that's the thing that's always really scary about being a building owner or location owner is that you want to make sure that we screen people who come in here because we don't allow provoking or Ouija boards, that kind of a thing. So we got to make sure that the people who come in here are treating our spirits right. Because I'm still one of those believers that you get a lot more bees with honey than you do vinegar. And right. I think that this building, like you just said, you hit the nail on the head. It's ready to talk. It's ready to share experiences. And the more people, the more investigators we get in here. I mean, just they leave wowed. Like I said, we had a couple of groups that they left the next morning going, I just cannot believe everything that happened in that building in that short period of time. And I'm like, yeah, work in there. Spend some time. Because I mean, you're constantly hearing voices, you're constantly hearing footsteps. You get tapped up once in a while, and you turn around and look, and you think it's one of your coworkers, and there's just nobody there. And so, like you said, when you start doing the work, and these spirits realize that you're here for the good of them, and that you're serving, doing the things that are right, I think they're kind of watching, and they're like, "Whoa, here's our second chapter of our life." Talking about ourselves, start being noticed, get that recognition that we may not have gotten they're alive.
Absolutely. So have you found, having both of these hospitals, have you found any type of crossover activity at all?
That's kind of funny you would ask. The first night we were here, so everybody who's been to OSPH knows that one of our doctors is Dr. Taylor, and he's kind of synonymous for smoking the pipe. Uh, I've done that at OSPH for a couple of years now, where you're in there and you actually smell the smell of pipe, smoke in the air. We were here a couple of weeks ago, and I'll be darned if it didn't happen here. And all of us kind of looked around at us and said, "Hey, Dr. Taylor," and you kind of hear a grumble, and then footsteps walking away, and we're like, "I'll be darned." They do travel from location to location. He's been here maybe 2 or 3 times, and I think kind of the same thing. I think that the buildings and the spirit kind of get jealous, because we're in a new location. I'm spending a lot of time here getting it up and ready. So, OSPH is kind of taking a back seat. And I'm sorry, OSPH. But, it's getting the new location up and ready, and it's putting that time and energy into it. And I really do think Dr. Taylor was like, "Well, hey, dude, you coming back? What's going on? Going." So he's been since back at OSPH, a lot more than before. So yeah, I think there is some crossover. I think you'll see that, because I do really think that, like yourself and me, when spirits realize that you care about them as not only spirits but as human beings, I think they do kind of attach themselves to you. I think they do kind of travel with you. I don't think they mean any harm, and I don't think they're there to do any damage, but I think they're just like me or you. I mean, if I said, "Hey, let's go out for a bike ride tonight," you'd be like, "All right, let's go." And I kind of think they're the same thing. It's like, "Hey, we're going to a new hospital," and I think Dr. Taylor's like, "Hey, I'm going to join you. I want to go see what the new hospital looks like." And so I do think that there's some crossover, definitely, from one location to the other. And if we believe in what the spirits are, why wouldn't they? Just like you're
Absolutely.
go over to your house on a Saturday night and have a couple of cocktails with you, and you'd come over to my house. So why wouldn't they travel? So yeah, so definitely some crossover.
Absolutely. I mean, and you're in that unique position where you have two the same or I mean, the locations are both hospitals. So I've always been kind of curious about that, if, kind of being the same, if there could be similar activity from the same spirits.
Well, and the other thing too is, remember that both of these hospitals were built about the same year. So
Mhm.
it's not to say even that Dr. Taylor didn't do some work here, or what I mean. Back in the medical field back then, there wasn't as many doctors as there are now, so doctors did travel a lot. So there's no saying that Dr. Taylor didn't come here to pick up some supplies, or whatever, maybe even work on a patient with one of the doctors here. I don't know. But there's that possibility that there might be doctors from Harriman that went to OSPH, or
Oh,
some nurses, and having crossover just naturally in their medical field. So, that's one of the things that's very possible as well too.
absolutely. And so speaking of investigations and everything, you all have a big event coming up tomorrow night.
We do. It's our first public event tomorrow night. It's kind of a sneak peek at O. I love everybody. O doing. So we have a kind of a sneak peek at O tomorrow night. It's kind of just a quick, short get to know O. I believe it starts check-in is at 6. The investigation starts at 7. We're going to wrap up about midnight. It's primarily for our new staff that's here as well too, to get them a feel of how a public investigation goes. But it's to really introduce people into the hospital. I believe it's $50, and that's with taxes and everything included.
Mhm.
But it's just kind of like an introduction to get people into it. We also have city council that's going to be here, as well as the industrial board, because they want to see what we're doing with their buildings. So there'll be members of them as well too. But like I said, it's kind of a kickoff to the paranormal world. Our big event that we're really excited for is on June 11th, and that's with Mr. Richard Estep of
Ah,
Haunted Hospitals. So he'll be here. He's with Paranormal 911. He's flying in from Colorado. And what's really, really cool about that is his book, OSPH, actually just released. And if you actually were on the Facebook, yep, you got it.
I do.
Yeah, so he'll be here signing that book. He'll be selling that book here. And we're really excited. I did have the opportunity to read the book chapter to from beginning to. I'm not a big reader. It is a really good book. He did a job representing the building. My spirits in it. He dissolved some of those rumors that were going around. And I will tell you, I've gotten to know Mr. Richard Stepp pretty closely. Him and I would consider him a real dear friend. And He's one hell of a guy in the paranormal field. I mean, really, really guy. So he'll be here June 11th, and I think we have, of course, the legendary JB Coates will be here. I think we have a couple other teams too that'll be here that evening doing it, and it's all on the page. I forget. There's just so much going on right now. But yeah, Jason Hale, I think, will be here. But yeah, it's going to be exciting. But one of the things that you're showing right now is go back up a little bit.
Okay.
What's really cool is we have those 1950s. They were like late 40s, early 50s emergency rooms or operating rooms. See right there with
the green.
We did a little bit of research on those, and the reason why the tiles are actually green is that it is more soothing for the surgeon when he's actually doing an operation. When they're doing a really intense surgery, when a surgeon looks away and he looks at a white wall, it takes their eyes a lot longer to focus on the work that they're doing. And the green is soothing, and it actually contradicts the red. So it was really unique. We did a little bit of research on that because this is like the third or fourth hospital I've been into that we considered purchasing that's got those tiles. And there was a very famous doctor who actually came up with that green tile. And those rooms are just incredible. It's actually one of the reasons I bought the hospital, because when you go into those old ORs, they're just phenomenal and in great shape.
Wow. I mean, that's really cool. And, when you can find that out and find that information, because it's kind of the same way with our drunk tanks. Our drunk tanks were originally drunk tank pink, which was Pepto-Bismol pink. And that was supposed to be known to calm aggression in inmates. And so it's always neat when you go in and you find different features like that you can find the history to back up why. And people that, maybe are just in and out of a hospital, just on a not a routine basis, but on a basis for being in there for an emergency or something. It's things they may not think about. And so when they go in on a tour and you can give them that information, that's a really cool thing.
Well, and like you said, most people, when they're in a hospital, you're knocked out. You're on anesthesia before you get to the operating room. So a lot of people don't even know what an operating room looks like. So when you do a tour here, you get that opportunity to actually see, what an operating room looks like, what the recovery room looks like. A lot of people don't get to see behind the scenes at a hospital. That's off limits. It's where the doctors and nurses do their work. And so when you have a hospital like this, you get to go into an operating room and, envision, what a surgery looks like and be part of that. And I think that's really kind of neat. And that's one thing that Harriman really has to offer, because we have a lot of operating rooms here that literally, if we were to put some equipment in there and a bed like I'm laying in right now, I could perform surgeries. You need it done? I can amputate an arm if you want.
There you go. So can people take, if they're more interested in the history rather than the paranormal, or maybe they're just kind of looking to get into the paranormal, can they take daytime tours and history tours there?
We're working on that. We'll probably start that in fall.
Okay.
We're working with our staff because we want to make sure we get the history right, and we want to make sure that our staff is giving it right. So right now we're still kind of in that discovery phase of making sure that when you come to a daytime tour, that history that we do is correct and accurate. So I think we'll probably start those around August or September. Daytime tours. It'll be just like OSPH, where you can come in, a 4-hour tour. You do 2 hours of seeing the history, and then another 2 hours of actually paranormal investigating for the people who want to do that. Because we do a lot of daytime tours over at OSPH. We're just amazed at how people come, stick around for the 2-hour investigation, and a couple of weeks later, they're renting out the building and ready to go investigate. So it's a great start for people. It's a good tool for them to kind of get their feet wet in the day, because we all know that it doesn't have to be dark to get paranormal things to happen. So there's a lot less fear during the daytime, but then people kind of put their big boy pants in the so they make that next step, and then they'll do an overnight, and then how it is. Then there's the book, and it's like, okay, where do I go next? What's next? And then by the time you know it, your whole paycheck's gone because you're traveling the country, going to different locations.
Exactly. Once they go once, because we do the same thing. We'll do The daytime is pretty much kind of guided on your own. We've got an audio tour when you go in, but then they come back for the guided paranormal flashlight tours or the guided ghost hunts, and then that leads into usually the flashlight tour leads into the guided ghost hunt, and then the guided ghost hunt leads into a private paranormal investigation, and then that leads into okay, there's so many really cool places here in East and Middle Tennessee. Where can I go to next? And that is the really cool thing in this area is that we are blessed with having, you guys are just about 40 minutes from us. Brushy Mountain is about 45 minutes. And then, go on south about 2 hours. You got Old South Pitt. And then over on into Middle Tennessee, you've got, the Lotes House, and you've got, the different locations there in Franklin, and then on up into, Franklin, Kentucky. So it's really cool that there are so many cool locations just within a very close proximity.
Very much so. Tennessee is very blessed. Tennessee, Kentucky, the whole area is phenomenal. And one of the things that's really unique about Tennessee is ghost hunt or paranormal investigate pretty much all year round.
Yeah.
We can't. Once November hits, usually November through March, it's way too cold. We left the hospital up in Chicago. I took a couple of volunteers up there. I think it was -13, and we're walking around this hospital, and my staff's looking at me like, "Yeah, forget this. We got to."
Now, are you all climate controlled down there at Harriman?
No, we are not. Unfortunately, 168,000 square feet. I think the electric bill would probably be about $40,000 to $50,000 a month if we tried to do something like that. So we're climate controlled by opening windows.
There you go. I can tell you just from the jail, we are climate controlled there, but our bill was so high in January, just on 3 floors, and we're much, much smaller than you guys. So I can only imagine. But the fact that it's so neat and so clean, and you guys have taken so much care at this location, I mean, that really is a huge advantage to investigators because you don't get a lot of the false contaminated dust orbs and different things like that you deal with at some of these other locations that haven't had the time and care put into it.
Well, it's a safe environment. You don't have to worry about the on you or the ceiling collapsing or a door and something falling out at you. As an investigator, I've been to some places that I can't believe I'm still alive, to be really honest with you. Some places that have been just amazing where you walk in and you can eat off the floors and everything in between. One of the things is it doesn't have to be spooky to be haunted.
That's right.
Active. It can be the cleanest place in the world and be one of the most active places you've ever been to. And I think that's something that we have to do is that, we're not into the whole, spooky thing. We're into the active thing. And really want to preserve history as the most important thing, and doing that in a clean fashion and a safe fashion. And that, my staff really strives to do. And Scouts County Jail, I've seen pictures. What you guys are doing over there is phenomenal. I mean, you're kind of in that same philosophy we are. Is cleaner is better. Make it safe, make it a great environment. So.
Yeah, make it comfortable. I mean, we get that a lot. A lot of people that come in, they're like, well, we don't feel like we have to get a tetanus shot right when we walk in. And two, you really don't get a lot of contaminants on your videos and that sort of thing because there's not a lot of dust flying around. You can sit down on the floor. You don't have to worry about, rat feces or anything like that. It's a nice environment, and we want it to be comfortable for the investigators that come in, and we really try to on ours. We really try to stick with the history and keeping it the integrity of the historical accuracy of the jail. That's how we've really tried to keep it without having the haunted house stuff on there and not disparaging any locations or anything like that, but just really trying to keep it the integrity of it. And so yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to getting down there and checking it out.
We can't wait to have y'all.
Absolutely. So again, a few, go ahead and plug and pick the tell the best way that people can can book the locations, the best way to find out more information about both of your hospitals, and then also any other events that you guys have coming up.
This is where Leanne Rogers needs to be with me because she's the one who does all of this. Our next event is the June 11th with Richard Estep. He'll be here. And I believe August 5th and 6th, we have the Wraith Chasers will be here at Harriman. And then I think the 6th, which is sold out, they'll be at OSPH. And then I'm trying to think, October 16th, which is a really cool event. We'll have to send you and Chris a private invite. October 16th, we're actually going to do a haunted or a night to dismember. Basically, directly across the street from us is City Hall, and it's the police station. Upstairs, they have a grand ballroom. It's beautiful. So what we're going to do is we're going to do actually a prom night across the street.
Nice.
Kind of like something like a Carrie prom night. You know, come gross, come bloody, come without your arms. Yeah, so we're going to do that. It'll be a full course meal with dancing and all that other good stuff. Kind of like a paranormal, get to know people. You know, it's going to be one of those events where Miranda and Chris and everybody comes and we get to know each other as a team, as a community, and as a bunch of hobbyists. So it'll be dinner and fun. And then afterwards, we're going to come across the street, do some investigating. And I think what's really important about that is somebody like yourself, Chris, the other teams, we get to all kind of mesh our styles and learn off of each other, do some really different things. And I think that's what's really going to be unique and neat about it, is we're going to try and send some invites out to people like yourself. And I know that the Holzer Files will be here. That would be Shane Pittman will be here. I know that the Hunters will be here, Brian and Rochelle. So we do have some peer celebrities who will be here who can share their kind of, on and off stage kind of events during filming. We have a couple other celebrities that are probably going to be popping in and out. So we're pretty excited about that. But like I said, it's primarily that we're going to do this prom. We're going to have some fun with it. Hopefully we'll all, as a community, get together, share ideas, share evidence, and then come across the street and kind of put it all together. And that's October 16th. I know the girls are really working on. Oh, wait, I was just corrected. It's October 15th.
15th, yep.
It's the 15th. It's a Saturday night. I'm sorry. Yeah, see, Leanne's already correcting me. It's October 15th. But that's going to be fun. And the girls are working so hard at it. I mean, they came up with a night to dismember. What could be wrong with the game, right?
Can't beat that.
So we're excited about that. And if anybody needs to get a hold of myself, I always answer my phone. It's 815-216-5724. You can make reservations for either location with me, or you can go to the website, which I know you put up there a little while ago. Hit the email link that goes directly to myself, Leanne, I believe Brooke. One of the three of us will get back to you and make reservations. But really, now's the time. We just open OHH, or O, as we like to call it. So we're pretty wide open coming up here. I know South Pittsburgh, we're booked. We're pretty much booked through the rest of the year, especially on weekends. I know we got a couple of Fridays left. But this is a location, like I said, if you're looking for a new location, you want to try and find some of the history out and be kind of on the cutting edge of a new location, this is the place to come do it, because you got 168,000 square feet to work with.
Wow. It's deceptively large. It just from seeing it from the road, you don't realize just how large it is until you realize it's a city block, right?
Yeah, very similar to OSPH, where the original building is actually behind the new building, and the original part of the building was actually on Devonia Street, which is a road off Roan, and then they kind of built forward towards Roan Street. So what you're showing the public, or what's public on the website, is really about an eighth of the actual whole building. I mean, that's really tiny compared to the rest of the building. And that's the part that faces Roan Street, which is, downtown city. But the rest of the building is behind that and goes to the right about a city block. And I mean a city block. We're not talking, a half a block. It's the full city block between, I believe, Walden and I forget what the name of the road is. But yeah, it's huge, and it's really deceiving. But I remember my first investigation at OSPH. I remember pulling up and going to the parking lot, going, "Oh, this is gonna be fun." There's, there's 3 stories, and it's as big as, whatever. And then I remember walking in there going, oh my God, this building's huge. And walking in Harriman, kind of doing the same thing. Like what you see from the road is like, where's the rest of the building? And then you take the sky bridge from the old part of the building to the new part of the building. Oh my God, this thing goes on forever. Where are we going to start? So yeah, it's kind of neat.
Exactly. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up, share share Old South Pitt's page, not to forget about them, because like you said, they're pretty well booked up, but the numbers, your number is pretty much plastered all over both of these two pages, as well as, I mean, just easy to contact. Events you've got coming up, is the best way to find those on Facebook and to keep track of those?
Yeah, on Facebook, where Leanne runs our Facebook page, so she's constantly putting memes up. She's constantly putting up the events. I know that we've really been pushing O, the last couple of weeks. But go out into the general population, get people to come stop by and see what this wonderful building, but not to forget about OSPH, of course. But OSPH books itself. I mean, that building's got such rich history, and it's been around such a long time, and it's got a real good following. That O is the one that we're really working on to bring that following up here too. Both locations, I've never been in such active buildings in my entire life. Just amazing locations and so well kept. The staff of mine just works tirelessly to keep these places clean. Like you said, where it's a Saturday night, you want to sit down and do some investigating. You don't have to worry about sitting in something you shouldn't. I mean, these people really keep these locations up well.
Absolutely. You've surrounded yourself in both locations with just great people, great teams.
There's a lot of great people on the paranormal team, and I've been really blessed with having some of the best.
I've not met every one of them, but I know I've met quite a few, and we've had a few of them up at our location, and a few of them, Heath and Shane, I've known them for years, and finally got to meet them at Doyle Goss's memorial that was there at Old South Pitt last year. And a horrible way to, have to meet someone for the first time, but couldn't think of a better location to do it in. And so yeah, just looking forward to seeing what, the great things you're going to do with these locations, and definitely recommend people to go check out, the event that's going on tomorrow night. Follow the pages and find out the very cool events that's going on, and go on there and book you a night and check it out.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ronnie. And I'm gonna pull you off the screen right here for a few minutes. If you got a few minutes, stick around afterwards. We'll chat for a few minutes after. But again, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share what you've got going on. And everyone in the chat room, thank you so much for coming on and asking these questions and making the show what it is. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And like I said, we've got a lot of really cool things going on this weekend. And be sure, if you want to get involved in the Haunted Ride with Ghost Biker, which is the tour of the historic Scott County Jail and the 98-mile ride, make sure you go on to the Historic Scott County Jail Facebook page or www.historicscottcojail.com. I think you can also find it through the Ghost Biker page. We've got the link to purchase tickets all over at all these different locations. So we will be taking ticket sales through tomorrow evening. We do recommend that you do purchase tickets in advance, because we want to get a head count. When you're doing these long rides, there's a lot that goes into it. We've got because if you have a very huge ride, and people with different experience levels and that sort of thing, very big rides can be hard to lead. And so it's good for us to know this head count in advance, so that we can plan, also so we can get the tickets squared away with the jail, and also be able to let RM Brooks know how many people are going to be coming in on our ride, so that they can best, prepare the lunches and that sort of thing. Now, lunch is separate. It is not included in the ticket, but we will be there, like I said, for an hour. So there's going to be plenty of time. And if I can give Tiffany a heads up on how many people are coming, then we can make sure that we're in, we get the food counts and that stuff in advance. So so that's coming up this weekend. Again, tickets for the flashlight tours. We do have 4 of those, or excuse me, 3, because one is sold out. We do have those coming up this weekend. Got a new episode of the Jailhouse Informant that's going to be on Sunday night at 8 p.m. And then also we will be putting our June flashlight tours and some really cool June events. We'll be having that up on the website here very soon. Next Thursday night, I've got Dan Terry. He's going to be my guest here on the Ghost Biker Garage. And he is a former police officer. And he's written several books on jails that we're going to be talking about. So I'm actually getting my reading in this week so that we can talk about that. But he has some great stories. He's got a show on the X network, and I think it's called Most Haunted. And so he has some really amazing guests that airs at 10 p.m. Eastern time on Friday nights, if you've not checked out his show. So he's going to be on sharing some different stories from some of the different jails that he's investigated, as well as talking about some of his books. So so until then, like I said, keep an eye out on all the pages that I mentioned. Get your tickets and for Saturday's event. And if I don't see you then hopefully I will see you guys next Thursday night here at 9 p.m. Eastern time on the Ghost Biker Garage. So thank you all so much and have a great night.